Developing mental strength to deal with bullies is an essential skill for anyone. Today, we meet with an expert to talk about how we can improve this skill after I hit this music. Today, we are joined by Naomi Riley, a motivational speaker and founder of TextPledge. She will share her experience of being a target of bullying and how she was able to overcome it, and will share tips on changing your mindset when you feel at your lowest. Naomi, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. I really
Yes,
appreciate
thank
it.
you. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into like this mental health space, and we'll go right from there.
Sure. Yeah. I think I was always in the mental health space. As we grow and develop, we kind of get there, right? Like we have to learn all of these things and the English language and growing up. And we kind of have all of these little things that we have to develop and get through mentally. And that is part of our mental health. But just to give you an idea, I was a child that was diagnosed with an illness at the age of 7. They thought my doctors had thought that I developed it when I was
Oh
3
wow.
years old. So I grew up with something called juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And for adults that get arthritis, it's a swelling of the joints and it can really affect your joints as you get older. But when you're a child and you're growing and it affects your joints, you can have growth deformities because the joints are not able to grow. So being young and having to deal with that, I went through a lot of sicknesses. And back in my day, not to age myself at all, but back in my day, they didn't really have a lot of regimens, medical regimens for what I was dealing with. And so they put me on aspirin and some other types of remedies that weren't really satisfying and they weren't really helping me. And so my mental health was really affected early on. And I as I grew older, I started to get those growth deformities. I got them in my hands and my leg, not too bad to where it was super
How much
noticeable, where I was the kid with the big
how much older,
disability.
like when you got older, like were you 10 years old, 12 years old, an adult? When did you start noticing that?
Yeah. So I wasn't diagnosed until I was 7. I had my first surgery, exploratory surgery, so they could see what was going on at around 7 years old. So I would say my growth deformity started about 9 or 10 years old. Now, as I got older and was a teenager, they kind of became significant. In my high school days, I remember, just really being sore and my joints hurting so bad. And I would remember walking with a limp in the hallway. And I would have kids come up and like walk in front of me and like they would walk like me because I would walk with a little limp. My one leg is shorter than another, not by much, but enough to where I might limp when I'm sore. Now being an adult, you can't notice it. But when I was growing, you could notice it. And so I was bullied by these kids that had no idea what was going on with me, and they just chose to, you know, demean me and degrade me for the way that I walked and what I was dealing with. So mentally, that was a huge challenge back
How long
then.
did that bullying last for?
Oh my gosh. Well, it lasted for my whole high school career because this individual, I had the pleasure of going to elementary school with him, junior high, and then high school. And so, he lived not too far away from me. And I was able to confront him not too long ago. And, I was just like, you weren't that great. You were not a cool guy to be around. And, he apologized left and right. And, he's like, I'm an adult now. And, but they don't understand, especially with, parents that have kids growing through it right now. It was really, really difficult for me to internalize it and then not have a person that I could talk to about it because I felt like I was in my own little island,
Yeah.
right? And so, for you parents out there that have kids that have disabilities or struggles that you have not had, I want to plead with you just to be patient with your kid and, create that space, that open trust with them where they can come and talk to you and just let them know that you're there to just be in their corner because I think it's really important that kids know they have somebody in their corner. They've got someone rooting them on, for me, my biggest advocate was my dad, and he would always, I would be so mad, I'm a faithful person, so I would be angry and upset at God because, like, why would I have to have had this? Why would a God create someone like me and give me this awful illness, right? And so my dad would come and pray with me, and that really did help get me through a lot of my times. But confronting the bullies, it's very, very difficult. It's a challenging time for our kids. I mean, I just know what I went through, a long time ago, and I know what my own kids have gone through, and it seems like it's doubling and getting
Yeah.
worse as we move
Did
forward.
that one kid in your school, did he ruin a bunch of friendships for you? Like, will you try and meet a new friend and then he'll
Um,
come by and pick on you and it cost you that friend that's the
Yeah, we were never part of the same friend groups. He was always the one that would just like make fun of me when I was by myself or um I don't know. It was just a really weird kind of bullying. So I didn't have to deal with that segregation where they kind of gang
Yeah,
up. I did not have to deal with that. But I dealt with it more on a mental level than anything. And I think that even when you're segregated from various friends and, like one comes in and says, hey, I'm better than you and you shouldn't be hanging out with us because of this, that, or the other. I always, tell kids, remember that it's not you that's the problem, it's
yep.
them. And if their friends tend to go with them, then that's on them. It's not you. Just stay true to who you are.
Would he would usually I don't like to talk about the bullying too much, but I'm really curious about this case. Would he pick on you? Would he
Yeah.
pick on you when he's only around his friends? Or was it no matter whenever he saw you?
No. No, whenever he saw me, it was almost like he was kind of like crazy about, picking on me, and I think
Obsessed
back
with
in
it.
that day as we were teenagers, yeah, he was obsessed with doing it. It was like fun for him. And, when I did confront him later on in life as an adult, he did
Yeah,
cry. And so he felt very, very remorseful, and he ended up changing his life around being a coach and a
nice.
mentor to children and youth. So he really turned
Good.
around like who he was. So there is redemption. Bullies can turn into better
Yes.
people. We pray for that,
Correct.
right?
But going back to what he said, I was just a kid. That's not really an excuse. Not
I
really a good excuse.
know. You're right. It
I would
is not an
if I was him, I
excuse.
would have just cut that part out. Just left it.
Yeah. Right, right. Well, so I would love to share with you some mental health tips to kind of keep your kids strong in this year. Kind of as we're going through this 2024, and we're seeing a lot of strife in our world right now. And
All right, Naomi, my first question, if my child doesn't have any confidence, what's a good way to help
Mhm.
show my child their strength and weaknesses
Okay. Showing your child strength and
in
weaknesses.
themselves, of course?
It's real. Yes, it's so important that you uplift your child every day as much as you can, right? You want to show them how much, I'm sorry about that, how much they're valued and loved by
Yep.
you, right? So the one thing that you can do is really hone in on what their attributes are. Like, do they love to read? Do they love sports? Do they love the arts? What are they really, really good at? And then help foster that. As children grow up, they are curious about so many different things, right? And we just need to really keep focusing in on the things that they're good at. Never like if they do something wrong, yeah, show them that was wrong. But we always have to like encourage a better
Yeah.
behavior.
How do we so it's great when it comes from a parent. How do we get that to translate into the school environment? Because a lot of kids a lot
So
of
there's
kids, when an adult tells a kid, "Hey, you're not dumb, Johnny." That's great from a parent, but it really means a lot more coming it from another peer. Could I go talk to would it be wise to maybe talk to their friends or their parents? Say, "Hey, can your child help my child become more confident?" Or is that too embarrassing to have a conversation with somebody else? How do we just get that
I
over?
think that that would probably really be a difficult one for unless it was something that was, more like, "Hey, let's just use his name, Jimmy. He could, really value from some of the things that you're doing. I see you're an A student, a football player. You show a good example of how students lead their way or need to be leading the way because you want to make sure your kids are hanging out with the right
Right.
ones, right? Not the naughty ones. So I would maybe approach it like that and say, hey, um, Jimmy could use a couple extra good examples. Would you mind, like, just hanging out with him at lunch once in a while or just, checking in with him to see how he's doing? I wouldn't approach it like, oh, he could use some more friends or, oh, because you never want that to go back to him
Right.
or spiral out of control. Like, oh, his dad said this and his dad, like, you
Yeah,
never
your
want
mom
that to
told me to hang
happen
out with
because it
you.
could
Yeah, you
always
don't
get
want that to
worse.
happen.
Yes. Yeah, right. That makes it worse for them for sure.
So, when you have a child in that bad mindset, like, "I'm dumb, I'm stupid,"
hmm
what else can we do besides, reinforcing their positives? That's great, but sometimes they're gonna get
hmm
sick and tired of hearing the same thing. What else can I do with my child to help that out?
Yeah. So, one of the best things you can do is help them learn about mindset and getting their mindset right. Because once we help them figure out their mindset, then it really can start opening up the doors for them. One thing that I teach every day or every time that I'm out talking, one of the most important things that you can do in your life is practice gratitude.
Yeah,
Every single morning, spend 2 to 5 minutes. And I've told my own kids this, everyone that I know, spend 2 to 5 minutes saying the things that you're grateful for. It's going to change your mind and it's going to cultivate a really positive uh, mentality for the rest of your day. I always say, be thankful for the things that you have because some of the things that you have are things that someone else is
yeah.
praying for. You have a roof over your head. You have meals. You have shelter. Those are things that some others are praying for. And we're seeing starvation now. We're seeing the border crossing. We're seeing all of these, people come across from the border. They're looking for homes. They're looking for a new life. Those are things that we need to be grateful for because we are not in their situation. So as long as we teach our kids that mentality, if you focus on the things that you have right now and you show gratitude in the morning, say, just close your eyes and be like, okay, I am thankful for this. I am thankful for this. I am thankful for that. It's going to start opening their mind and just not being so
Yeah.
negative, right? They're going to be like, oh, yeah, okay, this is
Is
good.
is there a fun way to teach gratitude to kids? Because sometimes I feel like that could be boring. I work with kids every day,
um,
And sometimes you gotta come up with new ways
Yes.
to get into their heads because a lot of kids like to say, I don't know how to do that. I'm not good at that. And their brain doesn't know if they're
Yeah.
serious or not. So, any ideas on a fun way to
Okay.
teach gratitude so kids can get that habit going without being like, oh, my mom said I gotta think of something good today or what, you know.
So, what if you don't mind my ask, what level do
So,
you
I
work with?
teach martial arts. So, I own
Oh,
a
okay.
school called Cato Karate, and I work with kids all
Love
ages.
it. Okay. So here's a good thing. You can be like, okay, I want to hear something good that happened to you this week. And they usually come and they're like, oh, I did this, I did that, I did this. And that right there, if you can go around in a circle, you can just be like, okay, so you did this. Are you grateful for that? They'll be like, well, yeah. Do you want to do that again? Well, yeah. Okay, that's one thing that we're grateful
Yep.
for, right? So you kind of make it in a game. Like, what things would you like to be grateful for next week? Tell me some things that you are aspiring to do. That actually in turn will help them
Yeah.
set goals for themselves so that they can be held accountable to reach
Yeah.
those
I like
goals.
that. I can see me asking that question in
Yeah.
class and nobody will raise their hand. They're just gonna blurt out the answers. That's that's how kids go.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Um, so another thing we can do is just help kids focus on the present, right? Um, One of the things I recommend is that we make lists, like I was just talking about how we say, well, what would you like to be grateful for next week? So that they're kind of setting those goals. So if one of them says, "Well, I would really like to go to, amusement park or I want to go to a theater
Yeah.
or wherever it is," right? So if they say something that's so off the wall, you say to them, "Okay, what are the steps that we need to do to get there?" Like like I could just see if you did this week, I could see them, "Oh, I want to go to the Super Bowl where everybody else is going." like where their tickets are $10,000
Yeah,
and
right.
up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hone that back. What are the steps that we would need to do to get to that Super Bowl? We always know that it takes time and effort to get there. And you being a karate instructor know that it takes a lot of time and discipline to actually be a master
Yeah.
at it.
So,
So,
along with setting those goals comes the setbacks. And I've seen
oh,
kids in
yes.
martial arts. I get these every now and then I get these gifted kids where they don't really have to try to do the techniques. They're just
Hmm.
naturally gifted. But everybody's got a weak point. And when some of these naturally gifted kids discover that weak point, where they experience failure for their first time, they quit. They don't know how to deal with it. And as a parent, that can be
Oh,
frustrating
no.
because we know that things have to be hard in order to improve yourself. Because you can't get better at something
Absolutely.
if you're good at everything, because you're not good at everything. So how can I teach my kid on these
Yeah.
setbacks? Like it's okay to have setbacks in life.
So I would really emphasize in the beginning of class that practice always makes perfect. And all of the people that you see out there that are professionals, they have put in the time, the effort, the energy, and just really made their craft right. No one does it perfectly the first time. If they do, they're genius at what they
Yeah.
can do. And that's a very, like a 1% of that population can do that. But even with my kids, I taught theater for a long time. I coached. I would always emphasize practice makes perfect, so you always have to really just practice and practice your trade, practice your craft. You're never going to get better at it if you don't practice. So that's a really important piece of getting to where you want to
I feel
go.
like as a martial arts school owner and even as a parent, practice doing your homework, like practice word problems. I feel like kids think that's a chore. Like, yeah, I want
I
to go on my
know.
tablet. I want to go do this.
Hmm.
And like, back when I was in school, there was we rarely got a chance to redo a test. You either passed or failed, and that's just the grade you get. You had to study for it.
Yeah.
So
now we're giving students a couple chances, right, to get to where they need to go. Yes, I know it is. I know it's frustrating for kids because they don't want to do it. They don't want to, put in the time to make their brains smarter. And some will be like, that class I took back in high school, that algebra, I never used that. Well, okay. Well, right now it's still a required class in our government, so we just still have to deal with it. And it really does help us mind our P's and Q's, one, because we're listening to the rules that we need to follow. And then two, we're just really making sure that you're getting the things done that you need to do. You're establishing a routine. So if you do it well, you study and you make sure that you're doing it well, you should only have to take a test once. Who wants to take a test 3 times? I don't know anyone that wants to do that,
Right.
right? But if we're not studying and we're not keeping that open mind to new things, then we really are going to have to study and study and study over. So that's where you're getting in the closed mind and the open
Yeah.
mind. I always teach our kids that, and half of them don't know that your brain is not fully developed until your late
Yeah.
20s. So, you can walk around and say, I can't do this, or it's too hard. Well, let me tell you, I did not only deal with an illness as a kid in my 40s. When after I'd had all my kids, I was in a car accident. And so after my car accident, I had to relearn everything over again. They had the doctors had to help me develop new neural pathways. And so what that meant was that they were working with me to implement, stories and remembering and how to put my, uh, motor functions and fine motor functions back together. I had tremors. I was shaky all the time and I had a brain injury.
Wow.
And so if anybody can do it, you really just have to keep an open mind to make sure that you are learning, especially, what you need to learn the first time, listening in. Proper diet and health really they play a huge part, making sure that you're drinking enough water as well.
Right. Um, let's get into the bullying stuff a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm doing all this. I have open mind. I I know how to handle
Yep.
setbacks. I feel confident. But then there's just this one bully that found my weak spot. How can I address that bully effectively?
Hmm. So there's a few ways that you could go around it. First of all, if the bully is aggressive and mean and you feel threatened, always go to an adult or some trusted professional where you feel if this is a threatening situation, go to a go to an adult for guidance. And so there's a few ways to deal with a bully. One is kill them with kindness. So one of the things that makes bullies the most upset is really being kind. So if this bully comes up to him or her, whatever, and just like, give me this, give me that. I need this. I don't want to hang out with you unless you do this. If it's within your means, be like, oh, sure. Hey, you can have that. No big deal. I hope you have a great day. Something like that. That'll just really, kind of just be like, wait, what? But if the bully is, uh, touching you or, doing things that is not appropriate, go to an adult, you know, um, and here's another one. If you're in a friend group and this bully will not leave you alone in the friend group, make sure that you are going to a trusted adult because it can only sometimes get worse. But if you want to remove yourself from that and you just don't want to associate with that person and they try to kind of just come
Yeah.
after you, let them know, like, hey, you know what? I'm not partaking in this anymore. I've chosen to take a different route and I think you need to too. That's one of the easiest ways to do it. Just avoid
Yeah.
them as best as you can.
Teach them to stand up.
Bullies are so
Yes.
hard. Yeah, they're so hard to deal with.
So Naomi, what strategies can I do to avoid these bullying situations so maybe they won't go looking for my weak spot?
Yeah. So just be really confident in who you are. Look for your interests. What interests you as a student? What interests do you have? What are the things that you know you're good at? And students, this is not scrolling on your phone or playing a video game. It's actually finding something that your brain can really work on to be that better person, right? Because yes, the phone time and the game time and all of that's really great, but you're not really working on your brain and you're not really working on the things that you need to be doing to kind of get to your next destination on where you want to go in life. So our job as adults is to help you grow and develop it to become wonderful humans, wonderful people, wonderful adults when you enter into the adult world,
Correct.
right? So focus have your student focus on things that you know that they're going to need and work towards as they become adults, right? One of the things is keeping a list of things that they have to do daily, daily chores or helping to take care of the animals. Just little things that can help move the needle. Uh, Even finances, right? We all have our finances we have to work on after when we're adults. Well, a lot of kids don't even know that because they've had mom and dad help them up until through college. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I've got all these things. And it's just helping them like see, like, okay, I'm going to have to do this when I enter into adulthood. I'm going to have to do this. So, just avoiding the bullies is always going to be difficult, but just look for the things that you're good at and then kind of look towards getting involved in things like
Correct.
that.
And speaking of avoiding the bullies, how can we teach our kids about self-compassion, forgiveness? Because like with your bully, obviously he apologizes
Hmm.
now, but that person picking on you is taking out anger that they're dealing with in life.
Yes.
They won't admit it,
Hmm.
but how can I teach my kid to forgive that bully even though they're making their life hell?
Yeah. So that is one that's really, really tough because even myself, I didn't forgive this bully for a long time. I was super upset. But one thing you have to remember that it's not you, it's the bully. It's never you. For a long time, I had a self esteem issue, and never thought I was good enough, and I never thought that I could just compare to some kids that didn't have what I had. Right? Like I never felt normal, and so it took a lot of time and I guess mental strength to kind of get to that point where it was just like, no, I am who I am and this is what it is and I'm going to get through it the best that I can and but I know who I am now and I know what beliefs and values I have, right? So as long as you can make sure that your students are loved, they're cared for, yeah, tough love, it works, but there's always another way. If they're dealing with a bully situation that you can see is really tearing them apart, talk to them. Just be like, hey, I'm in your corner. Let's figure this out
Right.
together. You don't need to deal with this jerk by yourself.
Exactly. Unlike when I was a kid, I never told my parents about my bullying situation because one, it's embarrassing. Don't-
Yeah.
But anyways, Naomi, if first of all, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. You gave us a lot of great advice, and we could talk about this for another hour or so or more. But if
Mhm.
people want to get a hold of you to ask more questions, how can they do that?
Sure. So I'm the founder of the TextPledge project. You can go to textpledge.us. We're a 10-in-1 smart pledge for students. We take them through everything from distracted driving to acts of violence with or without guns and weapons, discrimination, bullying and cyberbullying is another topic. And then we ask them to raise their mental health and protect the environment and actually watch out for animal rights. So we have about 5 or 6 books for every single grade level. And each grade level does have a mental health book.
Wow.
So I really encourage you to go to our website and learn about it. Under the educator resources, you can download any of our books and just learn about who TextPledge is and how you can get involved. I think now our app is downloadable. Since we're recording
Yep.
it now, it's not going to be downloadable until tomorrow. But we're very excited about that. But you can get all of the nation's 800 crisis
Oh,
lines. If
wow.
you're ever in a state of crisis, you'll be able to go to our app and pull up all the crisis lines that you're ever going to need when you're in
What's the
crisis.
name of your website and what's the name of your app?
Sure, yep. It's textpledge.us and then textpledge app.
And I will put this information in the show notes as well. And then if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see it on your screen. Ni-
Awesome.
Naomi,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.